community, or they need to fix it because it has so many flaws. And the fact that we've been talking today about extrasolar planets, but the IU definition precludes that. Those objects are not planets. And if you read carefully written proposals by many of my colleagues now who study the objects formerly known as extrasolar planets, that's what they put in their proposals. They want to study these objects that have no name. We all know they're planets, but the current definition precludes them. It has to be revisited, whether that's next year or sometime later. I don't know.
I have another reply to Kelly's question, which is there's someone in Baltimore that would have been nice to have here, and that's Bob Williams. At the time the IAU meets next summer, he will be the president. And people may want to ask him about this or start lobbying him. But I would assume that, like the current president, he would like the issue to never arise again.
Alan wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, I'm going to make a two-part comment to the question. The first is that unfortunately I have a pretty pessimistic view of the IAU's ability to deal with this issue. I think there's broad agreement in the room, and I know that there are very few people that I've spoken to in the scientific community that think that the IAU definition is a good one scientifically. Although there are many people that do agree with taking a dynamical point of view, I think that it was a botched, hurried job, and that's widely appreciated. And in that respect, the IAU has created a definition for north in our solar system that most planetary astronomers won't use. And to make north complicated is beyond my comprehension. Now, what I really think is going to happen in the long term on the 10 or 20 year scale comes back to something that happened was said very early this morning. Most people who study planets are not in the IAU. They're in the American Geophysical Union or the European Geophysical Union, much larger organizations and other scientific societies. And that I think that from a practical standpoint, the practitioners of planetary science will just walk. They just won't use it, not in some formal way, but just the terminology of what a planet is just going to evolve independent of how badly the IAU botches it. And I really don't see them coming forward with a broad definition that would make a lot of geophysicists and geoscientists, planetary scientists, more comfortable.
Okay, we're going to take one more question or comment, and then I just want to say this before it all breaks up at the end. There's a little time for informal discussion. You can hang around, but you need to be seated in the auditorium by 4:15, so the debate will be in the auditorium behind you. And please be there and seated by 4:15. Okay, last question.
And please leave this lower level, to go up to the upper level.
My name is Kevin Gifford. I'm actually a high school teacher from here in Maryland, but probably as important, I'm a parent with a 6-year-old daughter who's very interested in space already. And just hearing a lot of disagreement, borderline bickering going on here. What's the plan? Is she, 30 years from now, she might be sitting where some of you are sitting. Is she going to have 10 years of tumultuous discussion about planets, or what do you think should be happening at the elementary and high school level, or are we in trouble for the next 10 years?
I'm afraid.
You can start, but I'm going to actually ask every panelist to respond to that.
So I'm going to jump right in, and this is, I've heard senators refer to being in the Senate or how you move legislation is like herding cats, and it's a difficult task. Well, let me tell you what science is. It's cats herding themselves, which is even harder. It's the next level of complexity. And so there isn't a plan, because we're scientists. We don't usually do things that way. It'll sort itself out, just like many other scientific issues do over time. But I think that's a teaching moment for your daughter, and a very positive one. That the way that science works is through a continual feedback loop of being presented with new ideas, comparing them to the available data, which may change, and then change your reaction to the new ideas. And eventually an idea becomes accepted because the vast majority of people find a solution that's sufficiently encompassing to represent a model of the way nature works. And until new data comes along, you then live with that for a while. And this messy process that doesn't involve voting, that involves something more subtle is really the way that science works in every niche and corner. And she's seeing it writ large in this planet nomenclature issue. And I think you can use that to tell her about the scientific process.
Do the other panelists want to comment? Jack, do you want to comment?
I think you're actually in a pretty good place because you have a 6-year-old daughter who's very interested in space, and the students you have are high school students. So you can tell them what is going on, what these objects are like, and you don't need 1 or 2 word descriptors as the be-all and end-all. The person who's teaching kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and many of their students aren't as interested as your daughter in this particular topic, may have a somewhat more difficult situation with the terminology. But I think it is a really good teaching moment at this point to note that there are many objects in the solar system, and there's a big grouping, and it's just where you put things.
Thanks. David?
I want to agree pretty thoroughly with what I just heard. The words we just heard, teaching moment, twice. I'll use that again. This is a fabulous teaching moment for teaching our youth about science. Forget about the issue of what a planet is or is not, or whether Pluto is or is not a planet. What we are seeing is the scientific process taking place in public. And that rarely happens. And usually when it happens, it's because of some really stupid mistakes. You remember the cold fusion debacle from 2 decades ago. This isn't about cold fusion where people messed up in making or interpreting their measurements. This is in moving science forward, and we're at a point at which we're undergoing, I think, several simultaneous revolutions in astronomy, in understanding our solar system, in understanding solar systems plural by discovering planets around other stars, and in having the opportunity to compare the structure of our solar system with what we will find to be similar or different structures around other stars. It's about where we are. So there's so much going on wrapped up in this question that in terms of teaching, what is or is not a planet shouldn't be the focus, but it provides an incredible teaching opportunity.
I'm just going to say what they said in a different way. First, I'm so happy your 6-year-old is interested in science, and it's such a wonderful age because she's transitioned from that age where they only count and classify to actually being able to handle abstract thought, and that's great. And I want to echo what everyone said. It's about science process. And we're almost so lucky we have this example, because if we were sitting here trying to explain to you about black hole physics or the origin of life, it would be way too complicated for us to put it in ways that you and high school students and 6-year-olds could actually understand. So again, I'm echoing what everyone else said. It's a great example for learning about how science goes.
And in summary, I think the field will vote with its feet, or as Ellen said, with their paws. And if I had to make a prediction, though, I would say that the term dwarf planet will spread, and there'll be more of them. And whether they'll be considered planets in full, time will tell. I think there's a tiny silver lining in all of this. I think the announcement of the dwarf planet category elevated Ceres from complete obscurity into public consciousness, which I think is wonderful for that body.
Okay. Please join me in thanking the panelists and thanking you.